Good morning, friends. So my name is Lisi Schröttner. If I haven't met you yet, I'm one of the pastors here at Wildwood Mennonite Church. I mean, we've heard two great stories already today. Like Glade said, I can't top that. I also want to ask, what's your superpower? There's a topic for discussion over coffee time. So do you remember the first movie that you saw in a movie theater? Who remembers? A show of hands. Okay, most of us. Yeah. I remember the first movie that I saw. I have a very clear memory of it. And it was The Prince of Egypt. Who remembers The Prince of Egypt? Oh, a few millennials putting up their hands. Okay, great. And some others, thank you. So The Prince of Egypt is an animated film, and it's, as they call, an epic adventure, retelling the first chapters of the book of Exodus. And it came out in December of 1998, a few months after my family had just moved to the big city of Kamloops, British Columbia, that had not one but two movie theaters, which is a big step up from my village that didn't have any. So this was the first movie I saw in the theater, and it was a great movie. It's an A-list cast, excellent animations for the time. And if we ask about accuracy or fidelity to the biblical text, well, let's not go there because there are some major deviations, so we won't look too close to that. But another awesome part of this movie was the soundtrack. The opening scene is this dramatic scene with this refrain of "Deliver us" as the Hebrews, as we watch them working, being whipped by the Egyptians, building Pharaoh's empire. This happens for a few minutes, and then we pan over to the dwellings of the Israelites, and the music softens a bit, and we meet Moses' family. We meet Yocheved, Miriam, Aaron, and 3-month-old little Moses. We watch as they dodge in and out of buildings to hide from the Egyptian soldiers as they are looking for those baby boys. We watch as they finally make their way to the river. Again, the music fades again, and the mood softens as Yocheved sings to Moses a lullaby and places him in a basket. As I was watching that scene again this week, I started to cry. It's very powerful, I'll tell you. Moses then makes this epic journey down the Nile to the palace where Pharaoh's daughter, and in the movie it's Pharaoh's wife, so this princess lifts Moses out of the water. This whole time, big sister Miriam has been watching this all unfold, the poor girl, but there's a sense of relief near the end of the scene when it's clear that the woman intends to protect and care for this Hebrew baby. Again, the music soars and swells, and we're back to "Deliver us," and the scene is over. And then it cuts ahead a couple years. So this movie does a great job of portraying the actions of the woman in the story of Moses and these first chapters of the Exodus. From Yocheved to Miriam, to the daughter of Pharaoh, to Moses' first wife, Zipporah. So my one qualm with the movie, well, a few qualms, but this one qualm I have with the movie, it doesn't start at the very beginning of the story. Who's missing? Shifra and Pua, the midwives, don't appear in this movie. So that's a failure on their part, but anyway, that's okay. So I want to look at their story this morning and look at this whole company of women as we heard in the storytelling. But I want to focus on them, the midwives of justice in this story. So where does the story begin? Well, the book of Exodus picks up the story from Genesis, where the Hebrews, or the Israelites, the sons and daughters of Jacob, are established in Egypt and have become a flourishing people. They've built their life there for generations. But a new king has come in, a new Pharaoh. He has come and taken the throne. And the stories and the relationships of old are forgotten. The Israelites become the enemy in the land. To keep the Israelites in their place and to curb their numbers, Pharaoh and the Egyptians implement a series of increasingly severe measures. We begin with the forced labor, building the empire, and then we move into slavery. And then that secret plot with the midwives to kill the newborn baby boys. And then when that doesn't work, it seems, the fourth part, a public plan to throw all newborn boys into the river. And it's here, the step 3, where we meet the midwives. Puah and Shiphrah, those who fear God, become the main characters. Pharaoh, it's interesting, is never named in this story, but the midwives, they are. These 2 women are told by the king to attend to the Israelite woman in this tender moment of birth and to snatch away the baby boys and to kill them. And we have to think, when the empire fears the smallest and most vulnerable members of society, I think it's safe to say, they're not the problem, man. Here's looking at you. Here's looking at you, Pharaoh, King Herod, and colonizers in the centuries since then, who are still stealing babies. But in this story, Shiphrah and Puah, they're having none of this. And in an act of resistance, they let the children live. Their conscience, their ethical imagination leaves them no choice. And then when Pharaoh's plan is clearly not working, he summons the 2 women, and they lie and tell Pharaoh that the Israelite women are literally like animals. They give birth too quickly before the midwives can aid them. And that's that. As the women fade out of the narrative, they leave with a blessing from God, an inheritance and a promise of families of their own. Their defiance, their resistance, their, in a sense, civil disobedience could have cost them their very lives, but it didn't. Instead of death, they receive life and a place in this foundational story in the Jewish collective memory. With these 2 life givers, Shiphrah and Puah, leading the way, the other women in Exodus 1 and 2 follow suit. Their actions all have a profound impact on Moses and the Exodus story. Yocheved, his mother, sees her son, and she declares that Moses is good. It's the same line, the same statement that God makes during creation. This creation is good. She risks so much to save his life and gives him over to the very river that Pharaoh intends for death. He said, "Throw them in the Nile." But this river becomes the salvation of baby Moses. Miriam, then, is the first woman named a prophet in the Bible. And this fearless big sister is a bridge, a connector of worlds, connecting her Hebrew mother and the Egyptian princess to raise her brother. Like the river that she follows, her courage swells, and she becomes a key player with Moses in the Exodus story later on, guiding her people home. Then we have Pharaoh's daughter, and she chooses life for Moses, an active defiance of Pharaoh's commands. We have to wonder, did he know this was going on? Did he choose to ignore it? Did he care? We don't know. But what we do know is that this company of women chose life for baby Moses, and one can imagine that their courage, their tenacity, and most importantly, their love shaped his world. From these mothers and sisters and aunties, Moses learned what justice and resistance looked like. And I want to pause here and ask you about the people who have shaped your life. You can go all the way back to the beginning of your story too, but also think of more recent years of your life's journey. And of course, it doesn't have to just be the woman in your life, but who mothered you? Who nurtured and shaped your experience and taught you courage, tenacious hope, love, and justice? Who fought to bring you life? Who told you that life was worth living? Who told you that your life and all human and more than human life was worth living and worth saving? Think about those people in your story. As I was thinking about this week and these questions for myself, many faces came to mind, and I was very fortunate and blessed to have a very supportive family growing up, and also to be nurtured by many sort of aunts and uncles as we were little, growing up in small town BC. And I was very fortunate to have godparents, my Auntie Barb and Uncle Tim, two very precious people to me. Again, my home life and my family life was very supportive and strong, but this just felt like an extra gift. And these two folks nurtured me. I grew up in a very, very small town, and I felt when I was little that Barb and Tim ran the town. Like, you could have asked me, or told me they were the mayors, and I would have believed you. They were everywhere, and they did absolutely everything. And so I was constantly surrounded by their presence. Tim was my school bus driver. Barb was my preschool teacher. Barb worked at the weather station, and they were both very involved in church, and they just did so much for the town and so much for my family. And that meant that love was always close to me. I felt safe and known by these two. And honestly, out of my sisters, I felt like I was the luckiest godchild to call them my godparents, even though theirs were pretty cool as well. But they continued to love me and know me, even as we moved away and as we grew apart over the years. I still knew that they were always there, and they loved me, and they prayed for me. I knew that was true. And when Tim died 4 years ago now, and I went to his funeral and connected with Barb there, and Barb was at our wedding, and she led a prayer at our wedding, and I was very close to tears in that moment. But I knew that love was close, and I was safe, because Barb was there and the spirit of Tim were there as well. These two helped shape me. These two gave me life, and their lives intertwined with mine changed me for good, and their love showed me that I mattered. So they're just one example of many in my own life. And again, nothing traumatic or tragic about our intertwined lives, but they were foundational nonetheless. So back to the midwives in this story. They are life givers, and their skills and their schemes led to life and the flourishing of others. And that's where the invitation for us is today. So I'm inviting us to think of this term midwife, both literally, but also metaphorically, which we've already been doing. The invitation is to expand our imagination and think beyond the company of saints who've accompanied us on the journey. The midwives, they use their tools and skills and actively subvert the death-dealing directives from those in charge. They choose not to fear the king, but to fear God, in the sense that they stand in awe of and respect and honor God above all else. So I ask, who demands our attention today, and what do they ask of us? Do we take time to discern what a request requires of us, be it in the form of a friendly favor or a law? Can we use our gifts and imagination for good and to bring life? If this requires some scheming, would you do it? Am I calling for civil disobedience? Maybe. We could talk about that later. But what would it mean to say yes to these opportunities? To say yes to life when there is a cost? To be a midwife of justice, which is a phrase that Christians for a long time have been using, and other faith groups, to be a midwife of justice. It doesn't have to be a grand act of resistance that lands you in jail, brings you close to death, or otherwise demands a great sacrifice. To be a midwife of justice is the act of resisting despair by living into joy and hope. It's tending to your relationships and to your garden plots, deepening those connections and those roots, and nurturing new life every day. It's the small but mighty act of getting up in the morning, gritting your teeth and saying, I can do this. If only to fall into bed at the end of the day with that one thing checked off your to-do list, survive. You said yes to your life, and that is resistance. To be a midwife of justice is joining a protest, a demonstration, a memorial walk. It's signing a petition and emailing your MP. Yes, it does mean sending a letter to the Canadian Mennonite magazine or MC Canada leadership. Advocacy is needed at all levels of organization. To be a midwife of justice is declaring that all life is good and worth caring for, not just the young and the new, but the older and those in need. This past Wednesday, we were thinking about L'Arche already this morning. One of the core members, the core community members at L'Arche, Adeline, celebrated her 70th birthday. Now, I don't know Adeline's story, like very little of it, and in my ignorance, I was surprised she was turning 70. She looks much younger than that. But I do know that for several decades now, people have said yes to caring for this precious woman and have committed to her well-being, which means feeding her and clothing her, bringing her around, bringing her out into the sunshine, giving her a chance to share her unique gifts with the world. For the 10 years that Adeline has been at L'Arche, this community around her, her live-in assistants who attend to her day and night, and the staff and friends at L'Arche, they have been life givers and life sustainers for this precious Adeline. They have been midwives of justice. And there are so many more examples I could share, different ways to be midwives of justice, and I know you have these examples and stories in your lives as well. In all your roles, relationships, spheres of influence, you can choose life, and you do choose life. And here at Wildwood, in our commitment to each other and the world as a church, it's part of our vocation, our job, to encourage and provoke one another to love and good deeds, and to stand with the vulnerable in society, to be life givers and sustainers, midwives of justice. This isn't always an easy path, and there is always a level of risk, but sometimes we have to take that difficult path, to engage in the struggle, knowing that we engage and struggle together. We have to lean into discomfort and commit to the emotional work that is required of us. A favorite poet and writer of mine, Dante Stewart, ends a lot of his writing with this simple line: "The world is heavy, I lift what I can." The world is heavy, I lift what I can. And some days that survival box that we check is literally all we can do, and that's okay. We lift what we can, and that's why we need each other to carry one another. So may all of our actions, personal and collective, lead to life and flourishing. May we be life givers and life sustainers, schemers, co-conspirators, breathing, working together, encouraging each other on in love and good deeds. And may we be midwives of justice. And to end, going back to the Prince of Egypt, and I talk about it a lot because I really do love this movie for all its things that could be different. But at the end of that opening scene, Miriam, Moses' big sister, sings her verse in this beautiful song and lullaby. And she sings, "Brother, you're safe now, and safe may you stay, for I have a prayer just for you. Grow, baby brother, come back someday. Come and deliver us too." So my prayer for us in that tune is this: friends, may all our actions, the big and the small, lead now to life and not death. May we birth hope now and sustain it too. So friends, dream, scheme, and bring forth good news. Amen.